Hey guys, I'm Matt Joseph Diaz, working with Ravishly.com, and this week we're going to talk about mental health. And I'm sorry if I don't seem as energetic as I normally am. This actually is not a Kevlar vest. I got major surgery about 4 days ago. So let's be honest, we should all just be happy that I'm here. You're welcome. But the show must go on, and it's Mental Health Week, so we have a lot of ground to cover. Mental health is such a tricky topic to discuss because it's so unique to every person who experiences it. We all have our own issues, our own ways of coping with those issues. And because people are so complicated, it's never simple or easy. Well, today, let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about how to deal with a diagnosis. I know it seems simple. You go to a doctor, you answer a couple questions, and then they tell you whether or not you deserve to be shacked up in the wacko basket. But dealing with a diagnosis is actually really hard. And I know from personal experience. I don't talk about this much publicly, but I was diagnosed with bipolar 2 in 2013. At that time, I was experiencing probably the most difficult emotional period of my life. My cousin, my best friend since childhood, had died only a year before, and I was still dealing with the emotional fallout of that. I had a lot of stress, I was dealing with mood swings, I really didn't know what was happening to me. But eventually I made a decision to go see a therapist. I didn't think anything was wrong with me, I just thought I was going through a hard time. But after my appointment, my doctor wanted to ask me some additional questions, and we went through some stuff, and eventually I got diagnosed. I am a type 2 manic depressive. What that means is I experience very extreme highs and lows in my mood. It isn't like it looks in the movies. My mood swings aren't just triggered like that. I'm not crazy. But it took a long time for me to realize that. See, when you get diagnosed, it's easy to tell yourself that there's something wrong with you, because that's what it sounds like the doctor is saying. But often mental health issues are something that have been there for a long time. So whether or not you know it, you've been living with this for a while. This diagnosis doesn't mean you're suddenly different. It doesn't mean that anything is really wrong with you. It just means that you're learning to better understand your own mind. And that's something that's really hard to tell yourself. Because as soon as I found out, I thought, oh great, I'm crazy, and I started distancing myself from people emotionally. But after a while, after I learned to really take the time to learn my own mind better, it started to make a lot more sense. It's not like my mood suddenly just flips. I'm not a character on fucking Degrassi. I took the time to actually try and learn my own mental illness. I started to recognize the patterns of what would happen before I hit a depressive episode, when my thoughts would get hazy, when I'd feel myself getting sluggish. And I started to recognize how I would behave before a manic episode, when I would be fast, when I would be all over the place, when I couldn't really focus on anything. And when I realized once I started to recognize these patterns was that these things have existed for years. I'd been dealing with them for a long time. I just didn't know what they were. And even though it's difficult to process, and even though it's hard to come to terms with the idea of having a mental illness, a diagnosis is an opportunity to live a better life, because it gives you a better understanding of how you work. Having a mental illness doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It just means you function differently. And that isn't inherently a bad thing. The things that I deal with are difficult and they can be debilitating, but they also make me very aware of my feeling. And as a writer and as an activist and as someone who wants to communicate with other people, it makes it easier for me to do my job. I just don't want anyone out there who's been recently diagnosed with a mental illness or who wants to go to a doctor but is scared to feel like they're crazy. Because you're not crazy. What you're living with and what you're dealing with, it can be really difficult. But it doesn't mean something is wrong with you, and it doesn't mean you're not worth loving. Let your diagnosis be the first step to you getting to learn yourself better. Let it be the first thing that guides you to a more well-rounded and balanced you. And it can be. But the key is to never treat your mental illness like it's something that happens to you. It's an extension of you. It's a part of you. It is you. And just like you do, it deserves to be treated gently and kindly and with compassion. Because that'll make it easier to live a fuller and happier life. I hope this helped. I really don't talk openly about my mental health stuff because it's something that's very unique and personal to me. But I figure if it can help others, why shouldn't I try? Check out Ravishly.com for a bunch of great mental health stuff this week, including stuff that I'm writing. Follow my Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all at Matt Joseph Diaz. Be sure to check out my other videos on here if you want to know more about my surgery stuff. And if you like my work, you can always support it at mattjosephdiaz.com/donate. All the links are down there. It was great sharing with you guys. Have a good one.